Hi there. Thank you for tuning into my weekly show. This is Doug Zanes. I am a personal injury attorney with offices in Tucson and Phoenix, for those of you who have not listened to my show before. And today I want to talk a little bit about the dirty tricks that I've seen insurance companies, or specifically adjusters that work for those insurance companies, engage in as part of kind of how the insurance side of an injury case handles these claims. I'm actually talking about this. If you've been listening to my shows over the last, probably month or so, what you've kind of heard is a series of shows that revolve around the book that I wrote. For those of you who are interested in the book, it can be, you can Google my name, Doug Zanes, on Amazon.com. It'll pop up, and it's a very inexpensive book about winning your personal injury case, and it really talks about the ins and outs of these cases in a pretty straightforward, simple way. And it's not a long book; it's an easy read, and a very inexpensive book to get, with, I think, a lot of good information. But what I'm also doing is, in my shows, I'm covering the basics that are in the book. And so if you can't afford the book, if you don't want to buy the book, you can listen to these podcasts, and it'll give you, some of the information, maybe not quite as in-depth, but that I think is helpful. But when it comes to the dirty tricks insurance companies play, the reason I put it that way is because some of them, quite honestly, in my opinion, and it is just my opinion, but in my opinion, are dirty. They're not. Some of what I've seen done isn't fair to people who are the victims in an accident. And see, the mistake that I've seen victims of accidents make time and again is they believe that insurance companies are there to compensate them. That's how insurance works, right? I pay my premium, or somebody pays a premium every month for this, let's say, auto insurance coverage, and then that person hits me and hurts me. Well, that's what their insurance is for. It's simply there to fairly compensate me. And in theory, that's true. But we don't live in a theoretical world. We live in a real world where insurance companies are businesses. And insurance companies are very sophisticated businesses who, in my experience, certainly the big ones, are very, very good at what they do. And they're very good at being businesses. They make a whole lot of money. Quite frankly, they're some of the wealthiest, not simply national companies. They're some of the wealthiest international companies that operate worldwide. And so that's who you're dealing with. That's who you're up against, quite honestly. They're not simply, some little do-gooder who now is here to deliver on their promise to fairly compensate you. And I understand where that belief comes from. Their marketing is great. Insurance companies have done a great job convincing you that, they're the good hands folks, or, they're your rock, or they've got a nice little cute gecko lizard, and they talk about how they're there to help you. But I can tell you, they fight their own customers. Insurance companies fight their own customers over claims just as hard as they'll fight anybody else. It's crazy. But if they didn't, quite honestly, if insurance companies didn't handle their business the way that they did, there wouldn't be anything for me to do. I wouldn't have a job. I wouldn't be doing what I do now. I would be doing something completely different. But insurance companies have created that opportunity. Quite honestly, if they decided tomorrow they would do business differently and they would fairly compensate people without fighting with them, they probably would. I would probably have to totally restructure my firm and what we do for a living because people wouldn't need us. But I can tell you right now, that's not how they do it. They haven't ever done it that way, and they probably never will. That would be my guess. And so, I think that's where victims in accidents start, which is a problem. I don't want you to start there. I want you to understand insurance companies are businesses. And their goal is to pay you as little as possible. The less they pay you, the more money they make. That's the way it works. Now, I have had clients actually say this to me. I have clients actually say, well, why would they, if they can settle my case for $10,000, if that's the way it works? I mean, when they say, Doug, I get what you're saying. You're saying they're a business, their goal is to make money. So if I take that line of thinking, why would this insurance company spend $30,000 on attorneys, on experts, to fight my case, which isn't a $10,000 case? They could pay me $10,000 today and be done with this. So that doesn't fit with your line of reasoning, Doug. Why is that? And I've thought a lot about that over the years. And again, this is just my opinion, but my opinion is the reason is because when you look at, again, big corporate structures, you look at a big company that has shareholders, that has stockholders like State Farm or Farmers, or any of these public companies for sure, public insurance companies. And you look at their numbers, their financial numbers, you will have, I think what the insurance companies, part of what they want to do is they want to be able to say to the shareholders, we fight these claims. We would rather spend $30,000 fighting a claim that we believe is a frivolous claim than simply pay it out. And shareholders like that. I mean, but they're different pools of money, quite honestly. And so, again, I don't know all the answers. I'm not a CEO of some giant insurance company, but I can tell you I've seen plenty of insurance companies spend $30,000 fighting a $10,000 claim. Sometimes they win, sometimes they lose. And I don't think they really care when they lose. They just write the check. And when they win, that's great. I mean, but that's just how they choose to handle these claims. So let's start there. You need to understand insurance is a business. And as a business, their goal is to pay you as little as possible. So if you start there, that takes us to the next piece, which is insurance companies love to settle cases quickly and cheaply. They will settle your case quickly and cheaply 10 out of 10 times. So much so that some insurance companies actually, I think it's Progressive, they actually advertise. We have a fleet of vehicles. So if you're our insured, here's why you ought to hire us as your insurance company. If you're our insured and you're in a car accident, one of our agents will actually, or our adjusters will actually come out to the accident scene to help you as our insured. And that sounds great. Great customer service. You come out, you'll help me take care of my car because I'm your insured and I've been in an accident. My opinion is the reason Progressive has all those vehicles and has adjusters running around every town, in the U.S., coming out to accident scenes isn't to simply help their insured. It's so if their insured is at fault for the accident, they can talk to the person that their insured hit. And their goal is to talk to the person that their insured hit, talk to them about whether or not they're hurt. If they say, no, I feel pretty good, I don't think I've been hurt, then they're going to say, well, can I write you a check for $500 today? Because, it's been inconvenient, it's been a pain, you've had to go through it, we're going to fix your vehicle, that's not a problem. But on top of that, I'd like to pay you $500, and we can be done with this. And you feel okay, your adrenaline's pumping, you didn't break any bones, you're not bleeding, you don't need to go to the hospital. And lots of people will say, sure. And you take that check for $500 or $700 or whatever that minimal amount is, sign their paperwork, and now your claim is done. So tomorrow or the day after that, when you wake up and you hurt and you're sore and you're in pain, your case is already settled. It's too late, can't do anything about it. That's why their goal is to come out to the accident scene and interact with you if you've been the victim and pay you right then and there. They're hoping to be done with it. Now, not every company has done that, but the goal of the adjuster initially in any of these cases is to settle it and settle it cheaply right at the very beginning if they can. And you're the one who decides whether or not they can. Um, Now, a couple things to watch out for. If you're talking to the adjuster right after an accident, one of the things you always want to get resolved is your property damage. You want to get your vehicle fixed, or if your vehicle isn't fixable, you want them to total it out and write you a check for what they have to pay you because they're insured, totaled your vehicle. And that's okay. I mean, you can settle your property damage and not resolve your entire personal injury case. You just need to make it clear that, one, you're only settling your property damage. You're not willing to settle your injury claim at that point. And two, you need to be real clear, or the paperwork needs to be real clear, that it is only for your property damage resolution. That's it. Now, again, most of the time that's pretty easy, right? If your vehicle's fixable and it's getting fixed at a car dealership, generally the check that the at-fault driver's insurance company writes, for fixing your vehicle, they're actually writing to the dealer. They're writing that check to the dealership, so they're not sending you anything. So generally it's not a big issue, but if they are sending you a check for your property damage, you want to make sure that it's only in resolution of your property damage, not any other claim. And that's important because I have talked to clients over the years who have come in to hire us a couple weeks after an accident, and they said, well, the insurance company sent me a check, but they said it was just for, kind of the time I missed from work, the few days after the accident, and that's it. But, but I still, I haven't settled my case. And we say, okay, and we sign them up as a client. And then we talk to the insurance company, and they say, well, we don't know why you guys are calling us, because this case settled. And they send us a copy of the check, and they send us a copy of the paperwork, the release, and it makes it real clear that our client had settled the entire claim for pennies on the dollar, because the insurance adjuster, quite honestly, wasn't honest with them. And they didn't read the paperwork, or they didn't understand it, and their claim is over and it's done. Keep in mind, you can settle your claim completely even if you don't sign a settlement release. If you take that check and you cash that check, and the check makes it clear it's for settlement of your claim, you run into an issue. And so, if you're not sure and you don't want to settle your entire case, you need to pick up the phone and call an attorney and at least go in for, an initial intake. Take all your paperwork with them. If they've sent you a check, take that with you so they can look at it and at least give you some input. But that's one thing that insurance companies do that I don't think is really on the up and up, which is, tell you that they don't make it clear that by cashing the check that they're sending you, you are completely settling your claim, and they actually leave it pretty vague. They let you think what's helpful to them, and then you cash the check and your case is over. So beware of that. Either don't cash the check unless you're 100% sure that you are ready to settle your case, or unless you're 100% sure that by cashing the check you aren't settling your entire case. And the reason that's important is because when I look through the thousands of cases we've represented clients on over the years, and I look at, quite honestly, what the biggest value cases overall have been, I see a pattern, and that pattern is many of those cases start out as cases where, both our client and us as attorneys didn't think they were big cases. Meaning the client didn't have broken bones, they didn't have to be hospitalized, they didn't have surgery. They were simply sore. Their neck hurt, their back hurt, their shoulders hurt, their joints hurt. And it was 3 months, 4 months later, after receiving, conservative treatment, seeing their primary care physician, doing physical therapy, and not getting better, that then, let's say, an MRI was done that showed a herniated disc in their neck, or that showed a torn rotator cuff in their shoulder or a bicep tendon. It was 3 or 4 months later, when the client didn't get better from the conservative care that we learned, the client now has an injury that did come from the accident, because we have the documentation from the medical appointments and the what hurt and what they received treatment on, that shows that this herniated disc did in fact come from this accident, and they do need spinal surgery. And now the case isn't worth $500, which is what the client could have settled it for, and some people do, but now may be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, because they now need a significant surgery, a very expensive surgery. They may never be the same again. Possibly 7 figures, and so you don't want to settle your case for $500 or $700 and then learn 6 months later that that's what your injury ultimately is. So again, there's no downside to waiting a little bit. Certainly no downside to waiting, a month after the accident before you resolve it, to make sure you're completely better. And you've had an opportunity to, if you want to talk to an attorney like me in whatever your city or state is, and get advice. There's no harm in that. I mean, attorneys who have personal injury practices like I have, everybody I know does free consultations. They'll give you their advice. They'll give you input, just so you have a knowledge base. You can certainly, again, buy my book. You can listen to my weekly shows. I mean, hell, you can send me an email, quite honestly, and I'll respond to it and, try to help you out. I mean, we take cases, quite honestly, nationally. We may have to associate it with a firm who, we know in other states and other cities outside of Arizona who we know will do a good job. But we take cases nationally. So there's no downside to you waiting and getting the information that you need. There's potentially huge downside for you resolving your case for pennies on the dollar within a day or a week of the accident. But that is something to watch out for. Another thing, and I've only seen this once in my 17 years practicing, and I was floored when I saw this. I mean, as those of you who know me either through listening to the show or some other way, I mean, I've got offices in Tucson, Arizona, and Phoenix, Arizona. Arizona has a huge Hispanic population in both cities. And there, as part of that Hispanic population, there are members of that population who do not speak English. And I saw years ago a potential client come in who I sat down and did an intake with, who thought that they had only resolved, again, the property damage part of their claim. They were paying me for my car. And the adjuster that this particular person dealt with spoke Spanish to them. I mean, they had a Spanish-speaking adjuster. And this potential client just flat out told me, this adjuster, all the paperwork's in English, the checks, the writing on the checks in English, the release and all the paperwork's in English. I don't know what it says. I don't read English. But the adjuster told me that I was just resolving my property damage, and that was it. And so I signed the paperwork, took the check, cashed the check. But the release was a full and complete release of any liability. So now, according to the person I spoke with, the potential client, what she told me was the adjuster just flat out lied to me. Now, again, I'm not part of that conversation. I don't know if the adjuster did or not. And if they did, shame on them. I mean, that, in my opinion, really is horrible, unprofessional, and should have never been done. Having said that, we all have a duty to protect ourselves, but that, again, those are the things to watch out for. If you don't understand the system, the process, what's going on, you potentially are in a place to be taken advantage of by an adjuster who is willing to take advantage of you. And I'm not saying that they all are. I think there are a lot of professional, great adjusters out there, just, like there are in any professions. There's good and there's bad. But you've got to protect yourself if you end up with the bad. And so, so those are some of the basic ins and outs to keep in mind. And I hope those are helpful. And I look forward to talking to you all next week.